Hello and welcome to the Nakebe Tachiai podcast. We're at the middle of the Hatsu Basho, and I have got our man in foreign lands, none other than Josh, video linked in from Tokyo. Say hello.
Konnichiwa. Is this thing on?
Yeah, konnichiwa. So Josh has been in Tokyo for the last several days and was even fortunate enough to attend a couple of days of the Hatsu Basho. And from what I understand, well, just give us your impressions. And first of all, thank you very much for the fantastic write-up that you provided for the blog. And yeah, give us your impressions.
Yeah, it's been a strange tournament. It's been a strange week. Obviously, the events with Yokozuna Kisenosato have really overwhelmed, I think, the senses and the emotions of a lot of people that have been at the Basho this week. And I was able to attend one day before he retired, and I attended a day after he retired. And it was like two different tournaments almost. But I think by and large, people are excited to have sumo back in Tokyo. Obviously, I think as the whole tournament sold out instantly this time, as instantly
Yep.
as you can get. Every day that I've been there, and certainly I've watched most of the days on TV here from the apartment that I have in Tokyo. It's been completely packed, great atmosphere. Everyone's excited, and a lot of the coverage that folks like us have seen, whether it's on NHK World or other sources in the English language media, is really focused on the fact that 2018 was this year where you had three new champions, which is something that we haven't seen in a really long time. And so there's a lot of anticipation for the changes that I think 2019 would bring. And already 3 days into 2019, as far as sumo in 2019 is concerned, we started to see pretty massive changes already.
Yep. So I imagine that once Kisenosato announced his retirement, that there was a tremendous amount of press coverage, both in print and on television. Did you manage to
Hmm.
catch any of that media?
Yeah, it's something that I think, at least where we come from, we're both Americans, albeit you with a little bit of a Scottish tinge. We're both, we come from a sporting environment where people are very sort of quick sometimes to bury former stars or criticize when they haven't lived up to their level. And I
Yes.
think that just based on some of the stuff that we've seen in commentary online, I was almost expecting some of that with respect to Kisenosato's retirement. But a lot of what I've read, whether it's from fans on Twitter in Japanese, in English, what have you, is just sadness. Um,
Yeah.
some levels of disappointment, certainly that he couldn't have been a greater Yokozuna. But it's important to remind yourself that he's someone that for a lot of people, um, I think the hope is that he would have continued to grow his legend and continue to have, been this heroic figure. And he's
Yep.
someone who people desperately wanted to succeed. And so I think that while most people are accepting that this moment is the correct moment for him to move on, at the same time, there's sadness that comes with that. And people just wanted the best for him and wanted the best results for him. And obviously, after that incredible second championship that he had 2 years ago this March, that didn't really transpire.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that the cultural aspect of sumo in Japan is one that eludes most Western people. Is
hmm.
that Kisenosato was not just a sports figure; he was a cultural icon,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
loss of
exactly.
that cultural icons is a big deal.
Yeah, and as I said, I did a post earlier on the site, as you mentioned earlier this week, and it's been such a strange week. Day three, which was the first day that I went to the tournament this week, and the last match of Kisenosato's career, was one of the greatest atmospheres I've ever witnessed in any sport. People were behind him so much, and I wasn't anticipating that because day two, if you watch day two on TV or online or wherever you watch your highlights, um, it seemed like a very deflated, like a very bad, tense atmosphere. I think it was either Raja Pradhan or Hiro Morita who was doing the play-by-play that day on NHK and said it was a very tense atmosphere. The Yokozuna looked tense himself. And so I was anticipating perhaps not necessarily a negative atmosphere, but a difficult atmosphere on day 3. And, what ended up happening was he came in, as I said, it looked as though his doyo iri, his ring entering ceremony, was very authoritative if you were there in the venue. And it looked like he was trying to go out with one last stand. Certainly I was hoping, as many people were, that he would sign off with a win. And the whole crowd started clapping and chanting and cheering. And when he lost, it was, he lost to Tochiozan that day. And it seemed like a cloud had kind of been put over the doyo and over Kokugikan. And that deflation was equally something that I've never experienced in all of my time watching sumo. So the contrast there then is something that I'm going to talk about in a piece on Tachiai a little later this week that I'm working on. But, you contrast that with day 6, which was 2 days ago, as we're recording this on day 8. And it was just so different. You look up at the scoreboard and he was listed under the names that were listed as Kyujo, but really, is that any different to the experience that we've had over the last couple of years? It just felt like any day. It's nothing new. And it was a reminder to me that, you know what? Sumo moves on. It's going to keep going. And the stadium, sure, it was selling out of a lot of Kisenosato related merch. I think people were desperate to snap that up. But they still had, his cardboard standee up that people could take pictures with. He's still in the social media activation. Daimon Kinoshita still sells the postcards, as he does with Haramafuji. So it's not like sumo is going to forget him anytime soon. But I think it'll probably be when we get to Haru in Osaka that you're not going to see his presence around, in the arena. You're not going to see it on merchandise, and you'll go, "Wow, okay, I guess that's over."
So a lot of people have been very wistful about the end of his career on the doyo, but as someone who has sort of horrifically anticipated that he was going to be departing the sport before long, the fact that he's going to be running a stable, Yada Kabu, he's going to be an elder for sure. He's going to be an oyakata for sure. The stable is quite possibly going to be an Akihabara, which is sort of an unusual place for a stable, and really speaks to the fact that much like when he was active as a Yokozuna, he tried to bring a new energy and a different kind of focus to the sport, because frankly, the last Japanese Yokozuna has not been active on the doyo for almost 20 years. And, he really wanted to do some new things and to revitalize the sport. Frankly, I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. I think that the disciples he trains are going to be, very interesting, very fierce competitors. And frankly, the sooner the better.
It's going to be incredible to watch. I think he is not able to start that until a year after.
Yes.
So I guess it would be next Hatsu, and maybe even in time for the big influx of new recruits that we typically see in Haru and Osaka. Perhaps he'll have somebody. It'll be great. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he mixes sumo and his stable in with, as you alluded to, a very entertainment forward district of Tokyo.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. So so let's talk about a couple of other aspects of the Basho that I think have been kind of interesting, and specifically your take, because you've been in the crowd at the Kokugikan. Nishikigi, right? Talk about the Cinderella story. This guy was clinging to the bottom of the banzuke with just his fingernails so many times, and then he had a very good tournament at Aki, and he ends up in the Joijin for Kyushu, and we expected that he was going to get roundly trashed, and instead he got a kachikoshi, and so now he's even higher ranked for Hatsu, and he's actually pulling off wins. He's taking Ozeki scalps. He took a Yokozuna scalp, a Kinboshi. How do people react to this? Because in the media, he's seen as this cuddly nice guy who wears glasses, and he's friendly to everyone, and sort of like, the kid next door is Nishikigi. So what was it like? What's it like there?
People are really behind him to a surprising degree, because usually when you're watching the matches that are, Maegashira 12 against the Maegashira 15, you don't really get a massive amount of noise coming from various sections of the crowd. When Nishikigi was down there, he was no exception. You may see it sometimes for a guy now like, Abi, who's he's back down at that level of the Banzuke, maybe not quite that far. Chiyomaru was at that level of the Banzuke last tournament, or when Ami Nishiki came up. You'd see a lot of people get behind those guys. But I think that the Nishikigi story has captivated people. I think there are a lot of people who are sumo fans are as bewildered as we are to see him up there for the first time, and it's exciting. And perhaps he certainly gained new fans. I mean, he is someone who goes all out. He has his style of sumo. He likes to go body to body. I mean, we watched, I think it was day one, he was up against Tochinoshin. It was either day one or day two, and I can't remember whether it was someone on Tachiai or whether it was someone on NHK or whoever it was, but it said, wow, if he goes body to body with Tochinoshin, this is going to be bad news. And he went body to body with Tochinoshin and he won. And so he's sticking to the cliche, his style of sumo, right? But he's coming out with results that are far superior to what we believe. To your point, he was just someone that when we saw him up there, we just didn't believe in him. I certainly didn't. He steamrolls his way to 3-0. He picks up a Fusensho to get to 4-0, and obviously he's been pegged back a bit in the last few days to 4-3. But he's gone through a lot of the hardest matches that he's going to have, and he's come out looking pretty good. So now, if he can hold serve against the guys who are around him, then he's got another chance. And it didn't look initially like there would be a lot of chances for Sanyaku openings in the next tournament with the way the guys around him are performing. But the insane thing now is that with what's happened to Mitakeumi, which we'll come on to soon, you can look at him and go, could we really be looking at Komusubi Nishikigi? It's crazy. But I think it's a long shot. But if you look at the next tournament, you're potentially looking at a couple, at least one, and potentially two Kadoban Ozeki who are going to be really hungry for wins. So this could be his best shot in a long time to push on even further and defy the odds even further.
Amazing story. Well, you mentioned Mitakeumi. For fans who may not know, and I'm sure everybody knows, Mitakeumi injured his knee on, it would have been day 7, and or was it day 6?
It was day 6, yeah.
It was day 6.
Yeah.
You were there for the injury.
Yeah.
And, there's been, as is always the case with sumotori, conflicting reports in the media as to the extent of the injury. Nobody knows for sure how bad it is or how long he's going to be out of commission. Mitakeumi blew his chance at Ozeki, but he showed up at Hatsu hard, focused, ready to go. I had not seen that kind of intensity from him since Nagoya. Every time he stepped on the doyo, he was staring daggers at his opponent, and he was ready to launch. Really a giant disappointment that he had it so coiled up and now is now is basically recuperating. What was it like to be in the Kokugikan when he wrenched his knee?
So being there, I didn't have the view that the same people at home got. And also, it's important to remember and to remind folks, because sometimes you will get a report coming live. It's a little bit different than what folks on TV saw, and we're there. We don't have the benefit of instant replay or anything like that. But that being said, the atmosphere at that moment when he was injured on day 6 reminded me a lot of the Kisenosato atmosphere on day 3, in the sense that Mitakeumi that day had miles and miles the most support of anyone in the venue. I'm not sure if his supporters group was there that day or not, but if you looked around, and I was there with a friend who had never actually seen sumo before at all, and it was just so surprising how if you looked at any corner of the arena on either of the 2 floors, no matter where you were, you had massive amounts of groups of people with Mitakeumi cheer towels, Some of them were singing and dancing as he was getting up and going through his shiko. So when he didn't get up after he lost that match on day 6, the atmosphere just turned very dark and sad and somber very, very quickly.
Yeah.
He wheeled out in the sort of comedy sumo wheelchair that we see guys get wheeled out on when they're injured. And it was just really disappointing because, as you say, he had really, in my opinion, and it seems to be your opinion as well, been the Yusho favorite to that point because, sure, Hakuho going into today is still unbeaten 7-0, but Hakuho really hasn't displayed Hakuho level. So he's gotten away with one. You see it in some of the cheeky little grins that he'll have after he just about wins the match. Whereas Mitakeumi had been winning matches with authority. And it felt like, coming out of a period where we had been mourning the loss of the beloved Kisenosato. He's obviously not dead; he's still here, but he's gone. He's gone from sumo as an active participant on the doyo. It looked like we were going to come out of that celebrating another triumph for one of the most popular Japanese rikishi in a very long time. And on day 3, his mom was there. She was sitting just a couple rows in front of me. And when he won his match, she was, fans were running up to her to take photos with her. And she was taking photos with them. And they were all high-fiving each other and hugging each other. And it was like, wow, okay, this Kisenosato moment's over, but everybody's going to come together behind Mitakeumi. Right. And then now there's this great uncertainty with Mitakeumi. Certainly it's not going to happen for him this tournament. And so we wait and we see what comes next.
Yep. So really there's been a swarm of Kyujo that has happened during this tournament. Do you think that it's this is actually unfortunately becoming somewhat expected, is that many of the top men of sumo will suffer injuries before or during a tournament, and by the time we get to the second week, the ranks will be significantly depleted. Do you think that it's causing some fans to lose interest?
I don't. I think it's too soon because when you think about the Basho themselves, every day is sold out.
Yep.
People are there. People are excited. I think people just want to see stars, and I think it's as simple as that. And when they go, they can see, you look around the arena, just in terms of who has a presence at Kokugikan. You can see Endo, you can see the Yokozuna, you can see the Ozeki, you can take pictures with them. Now Abi and Chiyomaru, are guys that you see their presence around the arena. People want to see these guys. So certainly, to your point, it doesn't do many favors for the experience if the most popular guys aren't there. That being said, we are in, sometimes when you talk about a Basho, for example, on Tachiai, you refer to the Basho as being in 3 acts.
Yep.
And I think when you look at this transition from a lot of these guys who, to your point, are going Kyujo more often than they have ever done before now, I think we're sort of in the act 1 still of that transition. It might even be that Kisenosato's retirement is kind of what kickstarts that. And you are going to see, maybe from not necessarily the most obvious places, but as we start to see this transition take hold where more and more guys start to come and break through that wall from Makushita, which we'll get into, obviously, who those guys are in a little bit. But, you are going to just kind of naturally see more people going the way of Kisenosato. And I think a couple of those guys pretty soon. I think the most obvious one is going to be Takekaze, who hasn't necessarily gone Kyujo, but I think he's kind of at the end of his period as a Sekitori, and certainly the results are bearing that out. People are again calling into question the longevity of Kakuryu. You have long-term fitness questions over a couple of the Ozeki.
Well,
and so naturally
as well.
Yeah, and so naturally what's going to happen is I mean, you have a number of guys who are going to be relegation candidates from the top division
Yep.
after this tournament anyway, as normal. You have two spots that have opened up due to Intai with Takanoiwa and Kisenosato.
Right.
So the influx is going to be felt all the way down. And so I think it may not be by Haru or even by Natsu in May, but I think that Kyujo problem, perhaps will take care of itself. But there is a little bit of a situation here where as fans we can't necessarily have our cake and eat it too, because a lot of people on Tachiai will go, well, I'm so sick of these guys and they're just doing it the old-fashioned way where they get an injury and they just soldier on when they really need to drop out and get themselves fit. So it's kind of tough for us as fans and also as people who follow the sport and talk about it to, on the one hand go, it's so disappointing all these top guys aren't there, but then at the same time go, well, I wish these guys would just drop out and take care of themselves and come back fit. So
Yep.
I don't think there's any real good answer other than the fact that because sumo is a sport based on evolution, as that continues, I think the if you want to call it the Kyujo problem or the Kyujo question will answer itself.
So I've sort of usurped one of your hats because you were the master, and I believe still will be the master of the ones to watch. But I decided that coming into the new year, I was going to pay more attention to the divisions below Juryo. And frankly, I've been enjoying it quite a bit, and I've been posting daily as far as some of our ones to watch and who's up on any given day. You've seen them live at work in the Kokugikan. Some thoughts about how just pick a few names. How are they progressing?
Well, let's talk about this. I think it's great that you've jumped in there because a lot of times when you go earlier in the day to sumo, it's such a different experience to when
really
the top guys or even the Juryo guys come in and more fans are there and there's a big Juryo area. At the beginning of the day until about 2 p.m., they just kind of wheel these guys out and they just keep coming out. And there's a procession of lower division Rikishi, and some of them are prospects and some of them aren't. So it's interesting to kind of look around at the folks who are there and who they're paying attention to and who's really interesting. And there's a lot of great resources around the internet to dig in and see who's exciting and who's recruited who and who we expect to do well. But the really interesting thing to me is there's actually some really great sumo that happens in the bottom few divisions. Your expectations shouldn't be super high for the bottom two divisions, but once you get up to Makushita and you have these guys fighting for their lives, to some of them who've been in the lower divisions for a few years, several years, and they are so close to being able to make it to the salaried ranks, you get some really good, prolonged, in some cases up to a minute, 2 minutes.
Sometimes brutal
matches, guys flying everywhere. These guys who are trying to prove to themselves, to their stablemates, to their small but growing numbers of fans and their families, that this hasn't all been for nothing, and that the hard work that they've put in is going to pay off. And there are some great matches. So I think this tournament, it's interesting. A lot of these guys that we've been following for a while, the results have kind of been much of a muchness. Usually we'll have a handful of names that kind of steamroller the lower divisions. Like, when you think back a year and we were all talking about Enho and a couple guys like that, and Tomokaze, both those guys are now up in Juryo, and both of those guys had pretty incredible processions almost through the bottom divisions. In Makushita right now, to me, it feels like it's getting a little bit clunky because there's a ton of names. And so a ton of names who have the potential, I should say, to go on to the next level. And so as I was mentioning when we were talking about Kyujo a minute, now that we're starting to see more Intai at the top for various reasons, obviously Takanoiwa leaves for a different reason than Kisenosato, but we are going to see more age and performance related reasons why people are either retiring or dropping out of those divisions. I think it's going to clear the way a little bit, and it's going to give a lot of opportunity. First of all, this isn't going to be a surprise name to anybody who follows Tachiai, or certainly anybody who has been on the wagon that you've been driving for a long time. But we should really celebrate Waka Ichiro, who has been having a great basho, albeit I think we can probably accept that he's at a level in the Banzuke that's probably a bit below what his talent level is. I think at this point of his career, we can accept that he is, someone who has the ability and talent that is much higher than the level at which he's ranked. But he's in a position now to go on, and who knows when you guys will be listening to this or seeing this, but hopefully to go on and challenge for honors in this tournament and challenge for promotion. So that's exciting. Up in Makushita, Kizakiumi, who is the brother, I believe, of Churanumi, who's formerly known as Kizaki, is having a fantastic tournament. He's 4-0. Wakamoto Haru, who is the brother of Wakata Takage, is having a great tournament as well, 4-0.
He's near the top of Makushita, so he's right definitely there. A prospect for a possible Sekitori status.
I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen, and I think it'll be a great story because we could even be seeing as soon as May, as soon as Natsu, 3 sets of brothers potentially in Juryo. Chiyo Otori is making a great fist of his comeback. Chiyomaru, he could be back up in Makunuchi by then. But then you have, of course, actually 4 sets of brothers because I forgot Tobizaru and Hidenumi. And you have Takano Fuji, the former Takayoshi Toshi, who has been a little bit of a pantomime villain, but he'll be up there with his brother Takagenji. And then now you have the Onami brothers, at least 2 of which should be in Juryo pretty soon. So it's going to make the schedulers' lives very, very difficult. So that'll be exciting. Apart from them, I think it's been a mixed bag from names like Naya, who obviously we're following a lot. He's Taiho's grandson. If people watched the Grand Sumo preview before the tournament, you had Ryuko, who I've been following for a while. He's right at the top of Makushita, and I thought it was a bold pick that John Gunning actually thought. He thought Ryuko would be a future Ozeki, which is
that's pretty
bold. Incredible pick for someone at Makushita, wherever he is. But yeah, he's someone we've looked at for a while. So it's exciting, and I think that with all the guys who are on the elderly for sumo side starting to come into some difficulty in Juryo, the Takekazes, Sokokurais, Gagamarus of the world, and the space is opening up in Makunushi, the Makushita, the folks coming from Makushita, the ones to watch there, will start to make their way up pretty soon.
So rumor has it you have a couple of things to show off that you managed to pick up in your adventures at Hatsu. So let's have them.
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing that every sumo fan should get if they go to Kokugikan for their favorite rikishi, no matter who it is a cheer towel.
Yeah.
You've got one behind me on the TV for Abi. He's not my favorite, as most folks who follow the site will know, but I've been really impressed this tournament with Ikiyoi. I was the only person in Kokugikan on day 3 when I bought this who had an Ikiyoi cheer towel. I suspect there will be quite a few more of them when I'm in Osaka in March.
You should stencil underneath there what's left of him.
It would be funny if I just put like Band-Aids all over it and bandages.
You should put Band-Aids on it.
It's crazy. There's some really worrying reports that I saw today on Twitter about the state of his health, which we know has been horrible. He's taken all kinds of beatings. He had 7 stitches in the cut that opened up over his eye, I believe from Kagayaki on the first day. And then that's obviously the bandage from that has just come off every day, and blood's been going everywhere. And I think he said he's had pain inside of his eyeball. I think it might have been Haruth that found that quote. It doesn't look good, but my God, I mean, he just goes up and he gives it everything, and he's grinding out wins. And I hope that if he does get his Kachikoshi before the end of the tournament, as unlikely physically as that would be, I hope he does a Goedo, or Goedo did last tournament. He gets his 8 and then just goes Kyujo immediately. That would be cool. So I've got a couple other things here I should say first. one of the things that if you go to a sumo tournament, you should always make sure to pick up just as a souvenir. They do a fantastic job with the program. Yep. It's a really high quality book, and now they always feature the rikishi who won the previous tournament. This time it's Tachiai and his Kesho Mawashi on the front, and you get just really great high quality photos. I mean, as you can kind of see here, of the various rikishi. You know, so you have your probably the last ever photo that we'll have in one of these of Kisenosato, and then they go through the statistics. You know, their weight and health and where they're from. All the guys who are in the Basho. So it's especially if you're going for the first time and you're kind of wondering who's who, and you just want a souvenir of your time. It's a great one. Also, as we've talked about a few times, there is an artisan at Kokugikan named Daimon Kinoshita who does the most fantastic drawings and paintings of various rikishi. Yes. So I grabbed his postcards. They're a great deal. Fantastic art. They might be scenes from around the venue, as you can kind of make out here. Or they might be the rikishi themselves. And I grabbed a couple of Kisenosato this time.
That's great.
He's got much bigger muscles in this postcard that I'm holding up than I think. Yes. Excuse me. Than typically. And
it's very stylized.
Yeah. And I thought we would round up because this was it was actually pretty well received the last time we did it. BBM has now come out with the 2019 pack.
And so now Liam is going to be envious, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So we will we'll flaunt some of these cards to Liam right now. We'll see what we've got inside of a brand new pack. We will open up with Onosho.
Nice.
Traditional Onosho card. This is a tough look for me. It's a guy who's always a tough watch. It's Kiseyama.
Yes.
Who I want to pause right there. We'll talk about Kiseyama for a minute. I was rewatching, as I mentioned earlier, I went to go see sumo with a friend who hadn't gone before. And if you're planning to go to a basho with someone who hasn't gone before, or you just haven't seen this movie, there is a movie by the French director Gilles Coulon, A Normal Life, which features a very, very young Kyoku Taisei.
Yes.
And the first time I watched that, I perhaps wasn't really aware of a lot of guys who are in the lower divisions, and you'll get to see a very young Kiseyama in that film because he enters sumo at the same time as Kyoku Taisei, and Kiseyama is like the boss of that class. So it's interesting to see those guys both in the second division. We have an Amanishiki,
so that Uncle Sumo,
fantastic card. Whether that's his last inclusion in a traditional pack, who knows? I didn't get any special cards this time. That's a little disappointing. I have a Takara Fuji.
There you go.
And finally a Chionokuni. So not a bad little pack. You have a good chance of getting your favorite if you get one of these, or at least someone who you really like.
This is terrible. Let's close out by talking about the Yusho race. It's we're far enough along now. We've got Hakuho with a perfect score so far. Everyone who was close to chasing has taken in at least one loss, and some of them two. Do you think the boss will continue to defeat all comers?
I think probably he has a very good fixture list coming up. You know, a lot of his challengers have fallen by the wayside now. You can obviously argue whether Kisenosato would have been he wasn't really a challenger for anybody this tournament or last.
You certainly could have been if he was healthy.
Right, exactly. Kakeru's obviously dropped out, so we won't have a Yokozuna battle. He won't be facing Tochinoshin. Neither of the Ozeki really look like they're in great condition. So, I think Mitakeumi probably would have been that challenger, and he's dropped out now for a while at least. I don't know whether he's someone who is supposedly supposed to be expected back this tournament or not. I would assume not.
Yeah, there's been rumors, but as always with sumo, believe it when you see it.
Exactly. So there's no one really below him. I mean, you see the usual challengers who are the guys who are just ranked too low for their talent level, whether that's because they just had a bad basho or they've had injury problems or what. You have Onosho, Kaisei, your buddy Yago, Chonokuni's having a good tournament, but these guys are all going to suffer at least
second
one
week
additional
problems.
defeat. So it looks like it should be Hakuho's tournament to win.
Should be.
Takakeisho is hanging around the margins of the race. I think his challenge is really, can he get, he at this point, again, it's day 8. By the time this comes out, this will be outdated. But at this point, he needs 6 wins out of 8 for his Ozeki promotion.
Yep.
I would imagine that's probably the initial consideration for him, is to get those 6 wins, because he's going to need more than 6 wins to be able to haul in Hakuho.
Yep.
So that's got to be his primary consideration. And to be honest, on form right now, I would say that Tamawashi is every bit as likely as Takakeisho to end the bout with 11 or 12 wins. So, it doesn't really seem like much of an event anymore, but maybe one of these guys further down, maybe it's a Kaisei, maybe it's who knows, maybe it's a Yago. What a story that would be.
I'll tell you, it's going to be 42 Yushos for Hakuho, I'm pretty sure, and more power to him. But with that, let's wrap up. Josh, thank you very much for spending part of your Sunday afternoon talking with myself and the fans. It's been great. Covered a lot of great topics. And everyone, thank you for watching our podcast or listening to it if you're listening to the audio. And remember, for sumo, it's Tachiai.